All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello all. We're live on the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest, overseas, wherever you're joining us. We are live and sanctified, baby. Yeah, you know it. Mark Thompson here with the crew. And in fact, the crew is pretty full strength today. You got Kim, of course.
Kim, how are you?
And of course, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Every manner of magic will hit you today. Look, so the guy's been visited by a couple of Parkinson's doctors, okay? Give the man a break. That's all I'm trying to say. I mean, who hasn't? Really? So you're telling me no Parkinson's doctor has stopped by your place in the last year? Okay, save it. Save it for the jury. I don't believe you. I don't know how it's all going to work, but it does feel as though there is a lot of nibbling around the notion that Broadway Joe may not make it all the way. We will talk about that on the Pulitzer Prize winner. David Cay Johnston joins us in the second hour. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm excited about David. Jefferson Graham joins us in the first hour with some tech news. Much to do. Let's get going.
Do you think we should ask Dr. Predicto whether this is going to be a good show?
Oh, my God. I can't believe it. She doesn't even know the name of Mr. Predicto. He's Dr.
Well, he's
Predicto,
a new staff member, and I'm learning.
Yeah, but you just, why, Kim, you can't learn the franchises right out of the chute. It takes you like a year and a half before you can even learn the names of the franchises,
I think the most important thing is that eventually
I think it's a sign that you're not invested in the show, is what I'm getting at.
Why are you yelling?
Well, I can't,
I really feel as though
No.
What's happening here is that you're only barely connected to the show.
No, it's not true.
It's Mr. Predicto. Thank you. Mindy gets it. These are important things, Kim.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
They're running the president out on a rail because he makes mistakes like that. Well, today, President Joe Biden, he called Mr. Predicto Dr. Predicto, and he kept referring to him as Dr. Predicto. Well, everyone knows he's Mr. Predicto.
Apparently, I should go see a Parkinson's doctor.
Maybe you should. Maybe there's something going on with you.
That's pure speculation.
All right, let me ask Mr. Predicto. What am I asking him again?
Whether it's going to be a good show. I think we all already know the answer to that.
Mr. Predicto. Did you hear what he said?
Did he say no?
Yes, he said
Yeah.
no. Let's have...
He just
Mr. Predicto, could you reconsider?
No.
Is this going to be a good show?
Definitely not.
Oh, no!
It's no and definitely not.
That's not
Is
good.
Kim to blame for it?
Now is not the right time to tell you.
All right. Okay. All right.
Wow.
So apparently, and this is really hard for me.
Should I get a red card out of the gate? Like, is that what's going to happen
Not you.
Oh.
I just am saying that looks like we've got some tough sledding ahead, according to Mr. Predicto.
Yeah.
Stop picking on Kim, says Knit One Pearl One.
Thanks, Nick.
She does 3 shows. Exactly.
Truth.
That's the problem. The problem
Wait a
is
minute,
3
what?
shows. Yeah. Maybe she should concentrate on 1 show. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. She can't keep the franchises straight. No wonder.
Why are you yelling?
She's handling 3 different menus. Like the special today. Oh, no, that's over at the other restaurant I work at. How dare you pick up for Kim, Knit One, Pearl One. All right. I do have a question or two. I will get heavily into Biden. We'll get heavily into the politics. We'll get heavily into what is suggested by James Carville and others that you open up. Carville had this kind of off-the-wall suggestion. It seems to be getting some buzz. Essentially, the Carville suggestion is you get Obama and Clinton to hold a series of town halls, and these wannabe presidents, that is to say, the candidate in waiting, that it's invitation only, that is invited to this thing. They begin to exchange ideas. It's a town hall setting, and you begin to essentially winnow to a winner for the person who would replace Joe Biden. that strikes me as an immensely messy and divisive, certainly, but also controversial in the way that it will steal media attention. And I don't know that you'll get anybody who, at the end of that process, who could actually beat Donald Trump. I'm very concerned about things that steal media attention, because I think what's happening with Donald Trump is the rise of someone who, with Project 2025, intends to really core out the government and all the government protections / regulations on finance, on the environment, et cetera. They're all going away. The State Department is going away. The Justice Department is going to be filled with loyalists. This is a massive overhaul. They're taking the whole government engine out. They're essentially governmental terrorists. They're flamethrowers. They're arsonists. They're going to set the American government on fire, and then they're going to rebuild it with a Christian nationalism that they want. So
God,
when
giving me the
you
heebie-jeebies.
when you talk about media and where media attention is going, I'd like it to go to some of those things that I just mentioned. Instead, it's about Parkinson's, and now there's, you go with Carville's suggestion, it's these open town halls, and the retort to that is sort of, retort would be a ding word, actually. The retort to that is, well, that's all good, because it'll stimulate these ideas, and people will see that Democrats care about them, and that's just not how it works. It's played as disarray, I think in general it's a, and I think this is true, Uncle Russ says, Donald Trump has been unusually quiet lately. Yeah, because the Democrats are imploding a little bit. And
just stands back and let that be in the spotlight.
Yeah, standing back and doing nothing is what Trump really loves to do. He likes to
stand back and stand by.
Yeah, he likes to play golf, and he likes to sit around his bathrobe and watch Fox. That's what he does. So, but that's the latest. That Carville is kind of in that world suggesting that, but he feels. And this may be the takeaway more than his actual suggestion as to what kind of dance should be done. He feels as though Biden will step down. And increasingly, despite the defiance, there is a sense that these are the moves that one makes as they begin to reckon with the reality that they are no longer viable as a candidate. And those are the things that Biden is wrestling with and now reckoning. It's a, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But those who think that Biden will step down, and among them James Carville, they sort of suggest that, this is what you do when you're on your way down. You don't just go, okay, you know what, you guys are right. There's a process. A lot has gone in. And so the thinking is that he will step down, but we'll...
The Mark Thompson Show.
So I'm going to put politics a little bit to the side and wait on David Cay Johnston. Of course, I obviously have a lot to say. Still would love your comments, and if you want to add your comments, if you're a live viewer, you can join us in the chat. If you're a replay viewer, which is the way most people hear or take in the show, watch the show, you can put your comments in, and I do read all of them. Even though I can't respond to all of them, but I do read all of them. Let me quickly turn the spotlight to, and I've got a lot of video today too, don't I, Tony? What? I've got some good video, right?
Yeah. You sent me a bunch of stuff. Let's get to it.
Yeah. Well.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay.
What did I send you? Remind me.
Heritage Foundation. Yeah, we didn't use yesterday.
Yeah, I'm going to wait for David Cay Johnston for that. Go ahead.
Fetterman yesterday. You sent me a Fetterman cut.
And then Fetterman's pretty good. Yeah, play me a little Fetterman before I want to get to California. Play me a little Fetterman. This is...
what he's got going here is a situation.
Fetterman, there's no situation that he doesn't speak very frankly toward. And I wish Fetterman hadn't had that stroke. Although he's clearly, recovered substantially from it. I mean, he seems at least somewhat, more fluid in his speech and all that kind of thing. But I wish he hadn't had a struggle with depression, because, man, the Democrats need a Fetterman-like figure, Anyway,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Fetterman speaks quite plainly, and here's a little bit of Fetterman.
Joining us right now is the Democratic Senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. He was one of the first and fiercest supporters of President Biden in the wake of the CNN debate. And what that analysis kind of gets to, moving away from the polls, Senator, it gets to the questions and concerns surrounding President Biden still. His ability to
Stop for a second,
running.
Tony. He looks like he's being held in Gaza as a hostage. What is
really
that
does.
backdrop?
Like, he's just not a professional looking shot at all.
He is, for those who are just listening, he is against a brick, but it's a white painted brick, kind of distressed brick. So you see some of the coloring of the brick through. And it's kind of Fetterman. It's very industrial. Don't you
Where
think?
that seam goes together, that is not a clean seam there on that wall. That is busted. That is basement.
I mean, he's in
really is. It really is.
bulky sweatshirt, and
I'm not saying it's a bad look. In a way, I kind of like it, but I'm just saying it really does look like you're not used to seeing it. Okay, go back a couple seconds and here we go. This is John Fetterman.
And serve another 4 years. You were with the president during his stops in Pennsylvania yesterday. What did you see being with him?
Yeah, I actually spent the entire day with the president, and he was perfect. Whether it was in Philadelphia or whether it was in Harrisburg, at every single stop that we had, people were thrilled. I mean, people were thirsty to have their picture taken with the president. And he was crisp and he was engaged. And the Harrisburg event, it was actually in the 90s, and he was crushing. He was just doing fine. It was like a perfect, normal kinds of Joe Biden that I've always seen. And he has to be really happy after that day, because whether we went, they were all great events.
Did he falter at all? Did your interaction with him bring you any pause?
No, not at all. Not at all. He was fully engaged, whether in private conversations that I had or publicly or interacting with the public anywhere at the point. He was just regular Joe, and that's the Joe that I recognize.
Okay, very good, Tony. Thank you. So that he's essentially speaking to not only his mental acuity, but the fact that he's out there in 90-degree heat campaigning in Pennsylvania. And so that was Fetterman's take on it. And you certainly have seen a bit of a consolidation of support around Joe Biden. There was a major meeting today among Democrats on the Hill. Did I send you that video, Tony? I think I did. It should have been the last one I sent you earlier this morning. There you go. Let's just watch a little bit of this.
Democrats today will likely decide the president's fate one way or another. Meeting number 1 in the House just wrapped up, and it appears Democrats are still divided. One member tells CNN there was a sense of sadness in the room as several Democrats refused to say whether they support keeping the president nominee or not. CNN's Manu Raju, of course, is tracking it all. Manu,
this is what I want you to see, is this tape piece from Manu Raju.
Yeah, in fact, I did ask a number of members who left that meeting whether or not they still support keeping Joe Biden as their party's nominee, and they completely refused to say, including Congressman Dan Goldman of New York, Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Lucy McBath of Georgia, and Hillary Scholten of Michigan. Among the members who just simply would not say. Others said that they're simply deciding to back Joe Biden because he is the nominee and he's not going anywhere, and that they'll have to get behind him. And then there was some enthusiastic support, particularly among members of the Congressional Black Caucus. At that meeting, people aired their views, aired their concerns. It was a bit of an open mic venting session. The Democratic leaders sat back and they listened to those concerns. There was no consensus at all in the room. When I put the question to Democrats, they made clear that there are still concerns about the top of their ticket.
If the president declines to leave voluntarily, then he's going to be our nominee, and we have to make the best of a complicated situation. I'm viewing it pragmatically.
I think that there are changes that people need to see to continue to feel comfortable.
My takeaway is great sadness that we are not having a conversation about the fact that we have two people running for president. One of them has a record that anybody would be proud to have, and the other one is an adjudicated rapist, a twice impeached convicted felon.
I love that. I actually love those series of sound bites. Oftentimes sound bites can be pulled and it can skew you one way or the other, but I thought that was a pretty representative little group of sound bites. That was all I needed to see, Tony. Thank you. The idea is we support this guy. We have reservations about this guy. We have concerns about this guy, Biden, but we support him. And the other guy is an absolute horror show. I mean, he is just, to use every overused parallel, dumpster fire, whatever you want to say. It is I believe the other guy is a flame-throwing governmental terrorist. And it's not Trump who is that. It's Trump's desire to curry favor with the right and the way that he's found a home with the extreme right, both the religious right and the white nationalists. And so they have both found their vessel. He's an empty vessel. There is no philosophy of government that's underpinning Donald Trump. This whole idea, America first, etc., there are a lot of ways to interpret that. In this new world, the economics of trade are totally different. You can't get into some isolationist mode and expect to have a robust economy. So the idea that there are going to be more tariffs, this is crap that he is just serving up. His thing about, for every regulation we have, I want to take two all. I mean, that's just not the way. So we're going to remove two regulations for every one that we suggest. That's not the way protections and regulations work. There are specific policy issues. And so you begin to, I think, see how he is a tool. Donald Trump is a tool. He is a sales guy. He's charismatic. He slings the crap, and the media doesn't really call him out on it, and nobody else calls him out on it, of course. And so he speaks just with unabated abandon about any number of things that he's just pulling out of his ass. And the idea somehow that that guy could be effective makes him the perfect dude to carry the ball for white nationalists, Christian nationalists, and a desire to reform government and reform this nation in an authoritarian model. It is happening now. Project 2025 is the thing that is pointed to. It's from the Heritage Foundation. I'll play you the video in the next hour with David Cay Johnston. But I like that collection of sound bites because they spoke to two things: the reluctant support of Joe Biden, but support nonetheless for the reasons I said. The alternative is suicide, essentially. And also for the pointing out of exactly who he's running against. So, but finally, I'll just reiterate. Many are saying that these could be the death throes of Joe Biden politically, that he is slowly coming to the reality. We will see. Comments before I move. I saw, first of all, Pamela Kirby. I want to give you a big shout out.
Big shout out.
Super sticker for $5, and I appreciate that. We're a crowd-funded show, so when you in the crowd fund us by way of super sticker or super chat or whatever after the fact, we like to make a big deal of you. The only thing the press seems to want to talk about is that Biden is old. Trump and his S show are getting a pass. Yeah, that was essentially my point, and I agree. Biden should use his newly granted immunity powers, says Mark Petrie, to arrest that Heritage Foundation guy as a domestic terrorist. You know, Mark, that's the kind of thing that would happen under potentially under a Bannon, Trump, Miller administration, Mike Flynn administration. And finally, Tony has good brows, is the...
Thanks, Tony.
Wow, look at you, Tony, with the good brows, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
Sadly, I was told that's the worst thing about me. So
what?
I had one friend, like, why do you not like him? He's like, I don't like his eyebrows.
Make Tony big so we can check out his brows.
It's Italian.
There you
dude.
go. Oh, those are some nice brows.
Yeah.
It's the only thing left of my original hair color that hasn't gone gray yet.
Yeah.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah, girl, you're woo with those brows. I love
He's
it.
cute.
Yeah, he really is cute. All right. Well, that's
Oh my God.
I know. It's enough of that. Somebody disagrees with me.
Well, we like them. That happens.
I love it. Rob says, you're wrong, Mark. Biden is going nowhere. No, I didn't say Biden was leaving. I said Biden. I said a lot of people are saying. So I had that high ground. Okay, Rob. I've kind of carved out a little bit of a,
safety net.
Equivocal. Yeah, I've kind of played it. But you're right. I think he's gonna give. But maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other. Tony also has lovely eyelashes. Tom is saying.
Girl, you just weird.
Yeah, very nice. Wow. It takes a lot for a man to notice another man's lovely eyelashes. So thank you, Tom. Well done. Yeah. Well,
I've never noticed mine. How about that?
Big news in California.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think this is a huge story in California. As fires begin, inmate fire crews are dwindling, and inmate fire crews are wildly important to fighting fires in California.
Does that mean we have fewer prisoners, or just fewer prisoners signing up for the fire program?
Let's read on.
Let's.
Prison reform and the COVID-19 pandemic are the two reasons that the pool of inmates eligible to attend the camps where you're trained in firefighting, those are the two reasons that have really been behind the shrinking of the pool of inmates eligible. So at the same time that these camp sizes have shrunk from a peak of 4,250 to fewer than 1,800 today, California has experienced its biggest and deadliest fires. The summer's off to a very bad start, as you know. CAL FIRE and state correction officials in California say their strategy of using younger inmates, leaning on seasonal crews longer, and partnering with the California Conservation Corps and California Military Department will get them through the year and eventually bring inmate firefighter numbers back to pre-pandemic levels. Mm-hmm. At the peak of the inmate firefighter program, which was back in 2005, the conservation camp, as it was known, had 192 crews. Again, over 4,000 inmate firefighters. And not everybody is out there on the front line fighting the fire. You have support staff, cooks and orderlies and maintenance workers. And then prisons shut down and inmate populations declined. And the corrections department winnowed these camps down to 1,800 participants. And now there are about 83 hand crews, or as I say, 1,700 participants. It's scary. It's really scary. Because the more you read about how fires are fought in California, the more you learn that these inmate crews are critical. So that is not good news. Meantime, on the other side of calamity,
The Mark Thompson Show.
The new COVID virus variant is really taking off, everybody. It's a real winner. Oh, my gosh, it's really done well. And then,
this is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
That's right. And the new COVID cases are way up, rising up on our survey with the new variant.
There are no signs at this point that the latest coronavirus variants are producing more severe illness, either nationally or in California. But doctors are saying that this latest COVID rise challenges a long-held myth. Although new COVID infections are often mild compared with the first brush with the disease, they can still cause severe illness. So even if someone didn't need to visit the emergency room or be hospitalized, people sometimes describe agonizing symptoms.
Which is kind of different than old COVID, right? This new variant is different.
Yeah, well, one of the big differences with this new variant is that it can no longer present, for example, as a respiratory illness. Mm-hmm. That was the big thing with COVID Classic. it would represent and manifest as an upper respiratory infection or some kind of upper respiratory complication, right? That's not true with this one. This can often mask itself as almost a food poisoning type thing. There'll be nausea, vomiting, fever. It's kind of what I went through last week.
Yeah, weird, but you tested negative.
We tested 6 times I tested negative. But this is what to be aware of. And, again, I don't know to what degree, we just want to go, hey man, I know it's out there, but I just want to go on with my life, or you want to go on with your life with some modifications still from, the old days, but I do want you to be aware of it. And of course, everybody's experience with COVID is different and it's influenced by a number of factors. So, not to say that you'll get super sick and also not to say that you won't be affected, Previously, COVID just felt like the common cold, is the quote. But this strain is wreaking havoc. I don't like to complain, but I'm shocked at how much it's taking me out, said one person with it.
Wow.
Another person wrote their throat feels like razor blades. They feel like they're living in misery. I have so much phlegm, but it hurts so bad to cough because my throat is on literal fire. This is my 4th time having COVID, and I swear I feel like this is the worst it's been. Jeez, 4th time with COVID. It's crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah. A 42-year-old nurse who had COVID 4 times said that her latest illness has been intense with fevers, cough, head pressure, and pain. It's attacking my throat and ability to swallow. Wow. Well, that's, again, just to warn you.
That's not fake. That's real.
That is real. And COVID numbers are up. And the new variant is called Flirt, which seems as though it should be some kind of practical joke to call it Flirt. But that is what it's called. And, again, your mileage may vary in terms of how it affects you, but you should be aware of it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Showing up all over the wastewater in San Francisco and in California generally. Speaking of San Francisco and the Bay Area, somebody explain to me what the hell's going on in Oakland. Oakland is in a free fall. What is happening? Kim, do you know?
I do know. Are you talking about Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao and her?
Well, that seems to be part of it.
Her issues? I'll tell you. She's having a rough time. Here's a picture of her. Yeah. She, the investigators came to her house, carted away boxes of information in the middle of the night. And no one really knew exactly why. Well, now there's a newly released subpoena giving us a little more insight into this. It looks like it's a federal grand jury investigation tied to Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao. The U.S. Attorney's Office subpoena, it covers all Oakland City Hall workers, and they're looking for records tied to various entities in the 2022 mayoral election, of which Mayor Sheng Tao stood up and said she did nothing wrong. But they want all records associated with California Waste Solutions, a group called Evolutionary Homes, documents tied to the mayor's partner, Andre Jones. Yeah. And there they are. Last month, the FBI searching Mayor Tao's home and carrying out multiple boxes as they left. The mayor's, again, denying any allegations of wrongdoing. She has not been charged with anything, but we know a little bit more about why they were there that day.
What's happening with this boyfriend of hers? You think is it like the Nuri thing in San Francisco? Where he was getting, whatever the allegations are that, there's some, her boyfriend, here it is connected to a ton of Oakland leaders, says Norm.
Yeah, and it has to do with improper, financing tied to the mayoral campaign.
I see.
Is what we understand, yeah.
Well, it's never good when the FBI shows up first thing in the morning, guys.
Really
I'm just, very seldom I'm going to say, these things often are no big deal.
Hey,
you're not going to hear me say that. No.
When you're under a grand jury investigation, that's never a good day.
Yeah.
No.
In an interview with K-Pix, the mayor again insisted she's not the subject of the FBI's investigation. They just came by to pick up some stuff. They heard about my coffee. You know, the coffee's particularly good. When asked about Jones's possible involvement, she declined to comment and advised that anyone asking questions should instead contact the federal investigators at the U.S. Attorney's Office. But Jones's appearance in the internal city memo signals that he or his activities may be of interest to the federal grand jury, which could shift the public scrutiny from the mayor to her romantic partner. He is rarely around in public appearances, but he's well known in Oakland political circles. He could not be reached for comment. So she has, in this record keeping, I'll move on here in a second, but here are the kinds of things that they want to. So they put the word out, the feds have, that all documents are to be preserved there at City Hall, and certainly all those documents you saw them remove. So they're saying records that fall under the preservation order are documents and communications concerning California Waste Solutions and its employees and representatives, the use or development of the former Oakland Army base, any actual or contemplated declarations of a local emergency related to homelessness, any actual or contemplated contracts between the city and any waste management companies. You begin to, kind of put together what they're worried about. The city's policies and practices related to the retention and destruction of documents, and Evolutionary Homes, LLC, and its employees or representatives. So, again, based on that, you kind of begin to get the picture that, oh, I see. They're alleging payoffs. Maybe it's campaign. Maybe it's political funding. But it looks as though it might also be city contracts. So
there were also some allegations that the boyfriend was promising people city jobs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The folks at the Oakland City Hall and Oakland City employees have been told by the FBI, apparently, you need to preserve all electronic and paper documents. Don't throw anything away.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
And so that was just what I was kind of going through, the things that they're focusing on. But it is the good news, I suppose, is that Oakland is in good shape otherwise. I mean, there's just really no issues. That city, we've waited. They finally got it together. I mean, there's just no, run amok crime. There is no crisis of finance in that city. I mean, everything with Oakland is totally smooth. So the fact that you're removing the mayor and doing a whole big intervention, and she may be indicted, who knows? It really couldn't come at a better time for Oakland. So congratulations, Oakland.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's get some news from Kim. And then I have the Culture Blaster, among other things. I did want to jump on this story. Will you make sure I do this story that I was going to do yesterday? It's the Italian vacation tourist spot. It's super hot as a tourist spot, meaning popular. But they're turning tourists away. Why? I will tell you in the next half hour. Smash the like button like a boss. Do it like your life depended on it.
With your iron rod.
Because our virtual digital life does depend on it. Need those thumbs up.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Appreciate everybody who comes here, everybody who shares the show, everyone who supports us, our Patreon, our PayPal, those of you who come on and watch us in replay and you leave money. In fact, I want to give a couple of those people a shout out in a couple of minutes. But more than anything, I want you to know we, as really an entity that exists because of crowd support, very, very grateful. So, Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Let's talk about President Biden. He is being called unfit to serve as commander-in-chief, according to House Speaker Mike Johnson. Johnson telling reporters today that following President Biden's faltering debate performance against Donald Trump, it's dangerous, he said, when the United States has a president who is not on his game. The president, of course, sparking concerns over his age and ability to serve another term after stumbling a little bit over his words and appearing to lose his train of thought during that debate.
You know what's even more concerning is a president who is on his game, and his game is overthrowing the government and completely undermining a fair election. That's a president who's on his game, and then as crowds violently take over the U.S. Capitol, that's a president who just sits there and does nothing. That's the alternative. So when we talk about not on his game, Donald Trump, I wish Donald Trump wasn't on his game, because his game is destroying this country.
Speaking of Donald Trump, the Republican National Committee is adopting a new platform more closely aligned with Donald Trump's positions. Yeah. Oh, look, Vicky and Sausalito. What's this? This is fantastic. 1999? Oh, thanks, Vicky. That's really nice.
Kim, I'll do the shout-outs.
Well, it was there in the middle of the newscast.
I know, but
I felt like I had to respond.
It's a silent...
Sorry.
Tony, I don't get it. How
it
many
was
times
nice. It was nice, and I was saying thank you.
Thanks,
Tony.
All right, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
All I'm saying is I don't want it to throw you. I'd like it to be acknowledged, though, and I've asked that when somebody makes a contribution, that we put it up as soon as we can, and then after the piece of business we're doing, I will then double back and acknowledge them.
Well, okay, that's fine. But there it was in the middle of the news, and I thought, okay, I guess that's for me. I blame you.
Okay, it's my fault. You're right.
The platform.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
I don't.
Bring back Dr. Predicto. The platform softens language on the issue.
Mr. Predicto.
The platform softens language on the issue of abortion, says Republicans will oppose late-term abortion while supporting policies that advance prenatal care, access to birth control, and IVF. The platform expresses support for states to pass their own abortion laws, but says nothing about a national abortion ban. Again,
so
that's
this,
the RNC.
you understand,
yeah.
This is an effort to water down what is the actual plan and platform of the GOP. The actual plan and platform of the GOP is in Project 2025. It's all laid out there in the Heritage Foundation document. But because Trump knows that it's not really palatable, the abortion thing alone is really not palatable for a lot of Americans. And much of Project 2025 is out of step with what Americans are okay with. They put out this GOP platform, which is watered down, but essentially it's a decoy. It is not the actual GOP platform. It's designed to get you to go, oh, okay, that's not so bad. I mean, I'd heard some bad things, but so.
Yeah.
That's what's going on with that.
Closing arguments are back underway today in New York City in the Bob Menendez corruption trial. There he is. Yeah. Federal prosecutors are finishing up their arguments, and the New Jersey Democratic senator's lawyers will try to convince the jury evidence just isn't there to convict. Menendez is accused of selling his influence as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for gold bars, a cash stash, and a Mercedes to help two New Jersey businessmen get deals with the country of Qatar and Egypt and avoid another criminal prosecution.
To be fair to Menendez, he needed a new car. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
I think didn't the car go to his wife? You know.
Yeah, but you know, when you need things like a car and money, I mean, I get it. You need to make some backroom deal. You're a politician. You make the deal, and then you get a car and money. That's the way it works.
Is that how politics works?
Well, he'd already skated on the last one. This isn't his first rodeo. You know, Google it. Menendez has been in court before, and before ethics committee investigations before.
Google it.
Anyway.
That's the way it goes. Some big things happening at Justice Sotomayor's house. Did you hear about this? A report says that Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor's bodyguard shot a carjacker outside of her home recently. The New York Post saying a suspected carjacker pulled a gun on two U.S. Marshals guarding Justice Sotomayor's home in D.C. on July 5th. The 18-year-old suspect attempting to steal one of their cars when one marshal fired on the suspect, wounding him. The man is behind bars. It's not clear if Justice Sotomayor was home at the time. So,
wow.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Maybe Joe Box and Little Anthony were there. Wow, that's pretty... That's pretty intense. You don't want to fire on those U.S. Marshals. They really are pretty good firing back.
Yeah, and I think, don't they all have government-looking cars? Do you really want to steal one of those? No.
Well, actually, that's exactly the kind of car I want to steal.
Do you? Is it? The lead investigator in the Karen Reed murder case in Massachusetts has been suspended without pay for his behavior in the case. Michael Proctor will remain off the job as the internal affairs investigation into his actions continues. Proctor is accused of making vulgar comments about Reed while investigating her for the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, in 2022. A mistrial was declared in that murder case last week. So, BP, the gas and oil company, is expecting to lose nearly $3 billion for the quarter thanks to lower demand for fuel. Maybe you're just charging too much for it. The oil company said lower demand for refining could see between $500 and $700 million erased from their earnings sheet. Earlier this week, ExxonMobil told investigators that they expect as much as $1.5 billion of a loss to their profits as well. So, less demand. Here's a story that's concerning. It's about COVID. An outdated COVID vaccine may be contributing to a COVID surge in Los Angeles County. Public health experts say people should check whether the last vaccine they received was the latest version. People vaccinated before last October might not be protected from this new flirt variant. People are also encouraged to check whether they've been given the monovalent vaccine offered by Pfizer and Moderna. The numbers of new COVID cases in Los Angeles County and California in general have doubled within the last month. Speaking of Los Angeles.
Look, I don't know on the COVID stuff. I really don't. We've given you some great expert guest Q&A with Dr. Peter Chin Hong, et cetera. But I really don't know the answer on COVID. My dad got nailed by COVID. He was fully vaxxed, and he was never the same after it. And ultimately, it was the prime mover in a deterioration that led to his death, and just a couple of weeks ago. But that's an extreme example, maybe. But I know plenty of people who were vaxxed who, are still contracting COVID. Doesn't seem to be, didn't receive any kind of protection, it wouldn't seem. Now, at least your story about, well, it's not the current variant, that you may be getting the wrong one, that at least makes sense, explains what is happening. But it's wildly concerning because we don't know. I go in there, I roll up my sleeve, and I'm assuming that you guys have the right vaccine going in. It's an terribly, you realize this in so many different levels and so many different links in the chain that is medicine. Everything has to be done carefully and everything has to be done responsibly. It sounds to me like, oops, turns out we were giving you the old COVID vaccine. Okay.
So it's my understanding, though, that the vaccine won't prevent you necessarily from getting COVID. Just when you do get it, you don't get as sick. You don't have, you're less likely to die from it.
I don't want to get into this too heavily, but I will say this. The initial promise of the vaccine was associated with it being something that would help you not get COVID. You remember that, right?
Right.
Right. So there was that's how we got the drop 100% effective. How about that? We used to run that drop all the time. I was looking for it. I can't seem to find it right now. Then it changed. It changed to what you're talking about, which is, well, it's not going to help you not get it. Maybe it's going to help you not get a bad case. And now I don't know what it does. I don't know what it does. I hope it's that still, that it help me make sure that I don't get a bad case. But now let me just be fair to doctors. You're in the middle of a pandemic. They're trying to stop the bleeding, and they are dealing with a changeable enemy. That's right, a wildly changing mutation that is coming every hour. These people who were in hospitals, you recall, almost became incubators for different kinds of COVID. So please, this is not an easy science, but I do think it's fair to say that the initial promise of a vaccine was along the lines of polio vaccine. Get this vaccine, you won't get polio. Get this vaccine for smallpox, you won't get smallpox. This is in another category of vaccine. And I get the flu shot, and, again, so I'm not I'm not against it. I just wish we would really get, some accurate word. And then Kim has this story about the fact that people in Los Angeles have been getting the wrong vaccine.
Oops.
Oh my God. It's just
What?
It's crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of, though, things going on in California, they have this big search for a group of hikers missing right near another California wildfire. Imagine getting lost in the forest and then you see a fire in the distance and start smelling the smoke. All 13 found safe yesterday at the Tahoe National Forest. They'd apparently lost their way on Sunday after flames sparked in Placer County. They camped along the trail that night. A helicopter crew spotted them 2 miles away from the fire, which is now up to 200 acres, but still far from populated areas. Even so, officials are keeping evacuation warnings in place. So there you are on the holiday weekend, out for your hike through the Tahoe National Forest, and all of a sudden you start smelling smoke, and you're thinking, I got to get away from this fire. Then they get lost, and they get rescued. That's a story.
Yeah, you're right. That's a big story.
There's new numbers out from the holiday crackdown across the state of California. You'd think people would be a little bit more careful over the holiday weekend. I mean, the CHP is out in droves looking for you, right? Because CHP is saying about 40,000 people were caught breaking the law over the 4th of July weekend, most of them given tickets, including 17,000 for speeding. Another 600 drivers were clocked going 100 miles an hour or more. 600 drivers around the state. Of the 1,600 arrests made, 1,300 were for DUI, and nearly 2,000 were cited for distracted driving. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that? I mean,
they're going to get you.
I saw some definite north of 100-mile-an-hour drivers over the weekend. So
people going crazy.
Yeah, people are going nuts.
There's another measles scare putting people on alert in the Bay Area. Someone with this highly contagious virus visited from out of state last week and may have exposed hundreds of people. Santa Clara County health leaders trying to reach 90 residents who caught a Southwest flight at San Jose International Airport to Chicago on July 2nd. They're also warning anyone who stopped by a Starbucks on Blossom Hill Road in Los Gatos the day before to watch for symptoms. Measles can stay in the air an hour after an infected person leaves the room.
Oh, my God.
A new artificial intelligence video production studio is launched. It's called Dreamflare. Former Google employee Josh Liss and documentary filmmaker Rob Bravler seeking to help content creators make and monetize short-form AI-generated video. The company's headquarters is up the street from Meta's in Menlo Park. So there you go. New industry, right?
Yeah.
And lastly, I touched on this a little bit yesterday on the after party, but this is too good not to tell you about. 2 grocery stores in Alabama and others in Oklahoma are now offering gun owners the opportunity to purchase ammunition from vending machines. It's a bullet vending machine. I'm not even kidding.
Don't know. I mean, sometimes that the bullet store has to close. And the vending machine never has to close.
No,
Totally
you don't even have to wait in line. There's no clerk, nothing.
Yeah.
It's a self-service ammunition kiosk owned by American Rounds. They've been installed at Fresh Value grocery store locations in Tuscaloosa and Pell City. The kiosks, which are about the size of a home refrigerator, use facial recognition technology and require identification and age verification before you're allowed to make your purchases. And then you just tap your bullet of choice, you choose it, you verify your purchase, and off you go with your bullets in hand.
Tap
right in the
that
grocery
bullet
store.
of choice, everybody.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares
to this.
to this.
That's true. Yeah.
This report sponsored.
Yeah. Kim is faltering with her internet signal. But I will tell you that Coachella Valley Coffee is our sponsor, and indeed, they have a cold brew now that Courtney is falling in love with. When you go to the website, I already told you it's the best coffee on earth. It absolutely is the best coffee on earth. It's new crop and hand roasted. Everything is so great at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm having some right here. But this cold brew, check it out. It might really be just the thing you want. Let me just have some of this while I chat.
So nice, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So knock around this ready-to-brew cold brew. It's already in packaging, so it's just perfect. And I think you can let it steep overnight. I think, there it is. 2 filter packs make 1 gallon of fresh, cold brew coffee, or use one filter for a half gallon. And use a large closable glass container, fill. The more you do that, the less I can't read it when you keep doing that, Tony. What's going on?
Sorry, I was trying to fix the Zoom.
Oh my God.
Thanks, Tony.
I'm trying, man.
Why are you yelling?
Use a large closable glass container, fill it with desired amount of water, half gallon or a gallon, close and allow to brew at room temperature for 18 to 24 hours. This is their new cold brew, and you must try it. It's, again, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And when you buy anything, the tea, which we're crazy about, or this cold brew coffee, or just regular coffee, everything on the website is discounted 10% to our listeners and viewers with the discount code MARKT. So use the code MARKT for 10% off. And if you want to push it to somebody else, you can give them that discount code too. Okay. Very excited to have them on board, and it is the best coffee on earth. So there you have it.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to the program on Tech Tuesday. Our tech guy, the former USA Today tech writer. Now he does Photo Walks TV. Yeah, he followed the rainbow to his own thing. How about it for Jefferson Graham? Look at you. Yeah, every day you look sexier there in the muted lighting of Jefferson Graham Productions, or whatever the hell you call the company. I love it. I love it.
With my little yellow thing dangling from my ears.
Oh, it all works for you. You make it sexy.
There we go. Isn't that better?
Now, Jeff, you can talk to us about the thing that I'm being inundated by, which is this. I remember you telling us something about it last time, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was. I'm talking about the Amazon summer sale.
Yeah.
I'm just inundated with, don't forget these dates, the banners, the flash ads. Give us the story on this, and really, what is the value?
It's closeout time. It's all the junk that nobody wanted has been discounted $5 or $10. And it's not just Amazon, because Walmart is having their sale this week and Target is having their sale this week. So all the other retailers are doing it. And if you want to buy stuff that people didn't want for a slight discount, you can. Now, there's a few good things. The AirPods Pro, which I already have, but I want to buy them again because I'm in the mood. This was
must be nice, huh, Jeff?
I paid $175 for these babies, but the new one is $160, and the new one has USB-C to charge it instead of Lightning. So for that alone, I may just buy them. But that's what they're on sale for today at Walmart, and you can get them at Amazon next week and Target at the same price. You can buy a laptop at Walmart today for $89, and you can only imagine how awful it is. You could buy a laptop at Target today for $299, which I don't know. I wouldn't waste my money on that stuff. But if there's something that you wanted, that you knew you wanted, go look it up. The problem is none of us know what actually we want. If we do know what we want, it's not on sale. Right?
Isn't that the human predicament? You've just summed it up. That's exactly it. That's the world of consumers. And I love that you mentioned Walmart, because they're really trying to elbow their way up to the bar, and compete with Amazon. And they actually do on some level, I think.
It's still the number one retailer. Don't forget.
Thank you.
Walmart is still the number one retailer. Yeah.
Let me just go to the Samsung of phones, and then I'll double back to a couple other things. But Samsung introducing new phones this week.
Yes, on Thursday in Paris. I wasn't invited. Some of my other friends were. And they're going to get to spend 4 days there looking at the new AI features that they'll be introducing on their phones. Google's new phones are coming out in August. Apple's new phones are coming out in September. And speaking of AI, Apple made a big splash about all the wonderful AI things coming to the iPhone in September, including a more talkative Siri, a more responsive Siri, a conversational Siri, and then the fine print came out this week. Siri won't be all new until next April. Okay? April.
Big with the announcement. But so you stand by your original edict, essentially, which is don't buy a phone before September.
If you want a new iPhone, you'd be nuts to buy one now. That's all I could just say. Because the new phone will be out September 25th-ish, and it will be more powerful. It will have a better battery and a better camera and this and that. And that's all fine and dandy. You may care, you may not care. But the older one will go down $100 in price. And the previous one will be even less. So you will definitely save money, and you'll get the latest technology. When it comes to Samsung, their phones are going to go down in price in a few days. Where the older models will go down in price. So you'd be kind of nuts to buy one of those now. Now, that said, I just bought for my mother a used S22. It's 2 years old, and I got it for $300 on Amazon.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And
well,
I'm
facing, I don't mean to make it about myself.
Yeah.
Maybe others are in a similar predicament. My phone is horrible. The voice thing, where you're supposed to be able to dictate a text, doesn't work, okay? The phone itself is kind of glitchy, and I think I've just got too much stuff on it. I think I've weighted down with video and all the other stuff. And you did run through how to offload a lot of that, but I still have yet to do it. So for someone like me who's dealing with a phone that's kind of beginning to run itself off the road, that would be the situation where you might actually go replace it. No?
July 9th, 2 months from now, there'll be the brand new 16.
Yeah.
You have a 15 or a 14?
I have a 14.
I'd wait my 2 months.
Right. Well,
Because the new one is going to have the latest bells and whistles. And Apple designs these things so that they only run for 2 or 3 years optimally, and then they start falling to pieces. And then if you say, well, screw it, I'm going to hold on to it anyway, within 5 years, they won't even support it with software updates. So I would wait and get that new phone.
Mine is an Apple, in answer to your question, Vicky. Yeah. This is interesting on Walmart. I love our audience because this is true. And we, the taxpayers, pay for all the Walmart workers who need food stamps because their heirs need a bigger share of the profits. Right on. That's true. And it's true not only in the Walmarts of the world, but as you know, with other major retailers and other major service companies as well. So you've said a couple of things already. You've said that the Amazon summer sale starting next week has stuff discounted. If you know what you want, you might be disappointed because it's likely not going to be discounted. You also said that Walmart has already kind of waded into this, but there are some deals. You mentioned the AirPods, and you mentioned the HP laptop for $89 if people want to roll the dice. You also mentioned the Samsung phone, and then you gave us a reality check on Siri, which, despite the announcement, will not really be a chatty Siri using AI until the spring of next year. Now, it leaves one thing on the table that was kind of a news event, and it's about the impersonation that was used by these middle schoolers, and they terrorized teachers at this Pennsylvania school with an impersonated
accounts.
Yeah. How did it work?
They signed up. I would sign up as Mr. Thompson, and I would go get a photo of them from. It's not hard to find pictures of your teacher, and you put a picture of them up, and then you put it on another body, and then you create this account, and it held the school hostage. It's awful. It's terrible. I do think that had this happened on Facebook, on Meta, the teachers would have had an easier way of getting the accounts to get down, to be closed. TikTok is in China and obviously not as responsive. And it's just an awful comment on today's world.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, you'd think that those who perpetrated it would likely be expelled, right?
If they could figure out who did it.
Exactly.
How do you figure it out?
With that. Yeah.
How would you know?
Jeff, it is always a pleasure to see you. Congratulations on your success.
Oh, thank you. New URL, right?
Yeah. Well, I know the new URL, which is photowalkstv.com.
Right.
And everything is there. It's the clearinghouse. It's the mothership for everything that is Jefferson Graham. photowalkstv.com. Love our visits and look forward to the next one. Thanks for stopping through. Jefferson Graham, everybody. Right on, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is the latest, Tony and Kim? You'll let me know when David Cay Johnston gets here.
He has arrived.
He's here.
He has. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like David Cay Johnston should arrive with a flourish. You know what I mean? Like
There
if
should be
anybody deserves a
trumpeters, yeah.
flourish,
Mhm.
it's David Cay Johnston. There's actually some news of David Cay Johnston. I don't know if you... In fact, you know, can you put this up? I should welcome David first or share the news first.
Let's talk about him before he gets here.
Let me just quickly mention this news, and he can comment on it if he wants
Yeah.
to. The Rochester Institute of Technology has recruited David Cay Johnston as a full-time professor.
Wow.
Yeah, teaching courses in law and journalism. It'll start next month. You know, he's been at Syracuse University College of Law teaching on the law for 15 years.
Yeah.
And finally, like a veteran pick that all of a sudden became a free agent. Free agency has brought him to the Rochester Institute of Technology.
That's
very
big time.
excited that
I
this
hope he's-
Pulitzer Prize winner will be teaching. And let me say this. He will immediately have the most popular course on campus.
I hope he still has time for us with the teaching and the professoring and all this.
I love that you think about us through all
I know.
of this.
See,
All right.
you accuse me of not
Mark
putting the show
Thompson
first,
Show.
but I
Yeah.
totally do.
How about it for the Pulitzer Prize winner, multiple best-selling author? Now, beginning next month, he'll be a full-time professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology. Yeah, David Cay Johnston. Hello, sir.
Hello, Mark. Hello, people.
Yeah. So, Kim's worried that you found a prettier girl at the dance in this professorship, and you're not going to be with us anymore.
No, I'll still be with you every Tuesday.
Okay.
Classes will be taught in the morning. And be careful, before somebody in the chat says something, I'll point out that I have a bandage over one of my ears, just normal, minimal little medical procedure, but it takes a while to heal.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it was very nice yesterday. I added up on various social media websites I quit counting it, a little over 1,000 comments from people. And out of all of those, only one negative comment by somebody who had very crude language to describe what a horrible person they think I am, although he couldn't even spell the words of horribility very well.
Well, first of all, that's an amazing batting percentage because in the world of the internet, as you know, you become a lightning rod.
Yep.
But you're such a loved figure by those who care about facts and care about reporting. So
Well, I have something nice to tell you about your show, Mark.
yes, sir.
I went out to speak at Investigative Reporters and Editors Annual Conference. I'm a former president. And then we stayed on for 2 weeks of vacation in California, where I grew up and lived for almost 40 years. Now, I'm very used to people on the elevator or in the airport all around the world recognizing me from CNN or MSNBC. I had 3 different people who recognized me from the Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, that is extraordinary. That really is.
Yeah,
Man.
and some of them are from back east. I mean, there's some people here in Rochester who've discovered your show. They've written me notes about it. There are one of these people is from up in the Sierra Nevadas, and I don't remember where the other person was from, but they mentioned the Mark Thompson Show.
That's
right off.
extraordinary. Yeah, look,
You're building a real audience, pal.
Yeah, last thing I'll say on this is that, I really feel as though this is a homegrown show, and I've mentioned you before when you haven't been here as one of the people who came over from KGO Radio with us, and, you didn't double clutch. You came right along, and you've been so much a part of helping us build a footprint, so thank you. want to ask you about what's happening in American politics right now. I feel there's a massive story, but I also feel there's a massive distraction that's an adjunct to that story, meaning the Biden story is legitimate. You know, I think they're legitimate questions. It strikes me. I want to hear what you have to say. I also just lament the fact that it's taking the media oxygen away from what is a completely corrupt and a plan. I'm going to play a little bit of the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 video for you, a plan that will essentially dismantle government. I mean, these guys are governmental terrorists.
Right. Well, I think that there are legitimate questions that should be asked about Joe Biden. He is 81 years old, but Donald Trump is 78 years old. And what I've been appalled by is my former newspaper, the New York Times, has run something like 194 stories about Joe Biden's cognitive issues and a handful about Donald. And at many of his rallies, and there are, if you go on YouTube or Google to search, you can find compilations of videos where Donald is going along talking like I am at a rally and said, why is this not front page news on a par with Joe Biden on that night? Secondly, I think Joe Biden has and has had all the way along a terrible comms team, communications people. Anybody with a brain in their head in communications would have prepped him by saying, you're going to take a nap before you go on the air. I don't care if you're 40 years old. You're going to take a nap, and would have fitted him with lines that don't get lost in policy. Because in that debate, one of the things almost nobody's commenting on is Trump didn't answer any of the questions that were asked. In every case, he diverted. Secondly, he lied. There were CNN's very excellent fact checker, Dan Daly, has established 33 either lies or seriously misleading statements. Why isn't that the focus of coverage? Well, I mean, the fundamental reason is that's not news. We know that Donald Trump lies. No, you keep hammering that point in the news. And also, you know, Donald disappears as he did in 2016 and 2020 for days at a time. You haven't seen Donald now around for several days because Donald, who those who may not know, I've covered and known since 1988. In fact, I was the first person ever to write about him becoming president, and that was on July 10th, 1988. He has big ups and downs emotionally. And so he withdraws. And you can see in many videos, Donald walking and just, you can see he's lumbering. There's no spring in his step. There's no excitement about it. Biden, I think it's misleading about how Biden walks. Biden has a spinal arthritis. He does not walk well. I have a 1971 injury that, as I've gotten older, if you walk behind me like at an airport, you know, I sort of limp. I don't walk in a quite normal fashion because of an injury. Doesn't affect my brain or ability to do work, only how I walk. And Biden gets out there and rides his bicycle. And I think I mentioned this on your show about a month ago. My fantasy scenario for the debate, and it could still happen in September, is that Joe Biden drops to the floor and does a Jack Palance. He does one-arm push-ups because he's capable of doing them. He does push-ups with like schoolgirls. There's videos of that, very recent ones. And, you know, he could then say to Trump, he could get up on his feet and say, hey, Donald, it's okay. You can use both arms. Because what works most effectively with Trump is humiliating him. He has no sense of humor. And if he were humiliated like that, he would completely lose it.
I mean, the thing we witnessed, David Cay Johnston, was concerning, was it not, with Joe Biden? How did you there are two questions. A, how did it land with you? But B, and this is perhaps the far more important question, the political ripple effect. Give us the realities on that.
Well, I think that an awful lot of professional Democrats are concerned about Biden. I think that's quite clear. But at this point, if Biden withdraws, a bunch of things happen. First of all of the delegates are released at the convention, and they can vote for anybody. So we could end up with a very messy convention. Second, if anybody listening to this thinks that the Republicans won't challenge any other person put on the ballot by the Democrats by saying, well, you missed deadlines, this wasn't properly done, you can't appear on the ballot at all, they don't understand how the Republicans are using the courts to attain that which they can't attain at the ballot box. And finally, we have a system. Let's assume the discussion I noticed today on CNN and MSNBC and the one radio show I listened to was, well, the concern isn't the next 4 months. Joe Biden will be fine, but he can't make it through 4 years. Well, let's assume for the moment that's true. Joe Biden's got 2 years left of being able to be president before he'd have to resign. We have a system for that. It's called the vice president. It served us well for 240 years. It got us, Teddy Roosevelt in the White House and Harry Truman. So I think this is a non-issue. If he can't perform for any reason, then Kamala Harris becomes the president of the United States.
The Democrats shooting their own, metaphorically getting rid of their own, is sort of their side hustle. They did it with Al Franken. They're quick to provide a purity test, and then when somebody does not, I'm not saying that this isn't of great concern, but the notion that Democrats are the ones quickly turning, that doesn't surprise me in the least. I mean,
Mark, I agree with you about that. I mean, Democrats have three longstanding problems. They have a long history of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. They eat their own, and Al Franken is probably the best example of that. I've talked with Al Franken about the horseplay that was going on the airplane at the time. That's what people in comedy do. One of my daughters is a lyricist and librettist for musicals, and she did comedy for a long time. And some of the stuff that they did sort of like as a father, I wasn't great with, but that's how comedy works, especially when you're making stuff up as you go along to experiment. And then the third thing is that the Democrats are so quick to turn to eat their own, to question what they're doing, instead of saying, we're going to dance with whoever brung us to the dance. And I don't think that enough people will be influenced by the debate performance, particularly if you watch the very next morning, as I did the whole time Biden spoke for roughly 2 hours in North Carolina. He was clear as a bell.
Yeah. And indeed, Fetterman, we ran some video of him talking about campaigning alongside Biden over the weekend in Pennsylvania. He said it was 90 degrees. He said, I'll tell you, the guy didn't lose a step. I mean, we're out there for hours.
Yeah.
So,
even if you assume the worst, that's why we have a 29th Amendment or 27th, I don't remember the number at the moment, to temporarily replace the president. And we have a vice president ready to go. And, the one time we needed to invoke that for reasons of a resignation, that worked out pretty well. Jerry Ford was president for 26 months, and he steered the ship straight ahead. So
under the new Supreme Court ruling, Nixon would never have had to resign.
That's exactly right. Richard Nixon wants his presidency back. Let me tell you what's appalling about the Supreme Court immunity ruling. It isn't just that they manufactured whole new legal theory and law that has no basis whatsoever. It's that in the last Second Amendment case the court issued earlier this year and last year, they articulated this principle that gun laws have to be based on American tradition and history. In fact, as I read it, all Supreme Court decisions are supposed to be based on historical precedent. So, I guess we're going to bring back wife beating and make spousal rape legal again. But that all went out the window in the immunity case. And the problem in the immunity case is in Federalist 69, which I doubt many people read, but you can go on the internet and find it. It's free. Alexander Hamilton wrote it. In Federalist 69, it says the president can be prosecuted for any crimes he's committed. Mitch McConnell, in January of 2001, right after the failed effort by Donald Trump to overthrow our government, said he can be prosecuted. And so this Supreme Court decision is cockamamie, and it leaves all these unanswered questions about what's an official act, what's an unofficial act. I don't see in the New York case the payoffs to Stormy Daniels that, let's remember, the case is about stealing an election, corrupting an election. That's the overriding charge, corrupting the election through these criminal means. Most of that happened before Donald Trump became president, and signing a personal check is not an official act. So I don't understand why Judge Merchan indicated, well, I may have to just dismiss the whole case.
Yeah, that was an odd thing, given what you've just said. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not possible that paying off someone you had sex with for less than a minute is an official act, especially when it occurred in, I think, 2005 or 2006.
I do see how Chutkan now, the D.C. judge, has to go through the various 45-page indictment and decide this is an official act, that wasn't an official act. Some of these things are no longer indictable. That's a word.
Right. And if you read the whole thing in context, it seems to me that the thrust of that entire 45-page indictment is you tried to overthrow the government. And it's not possible if that's an official act. The oath you take as president is to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, domestic and foreign. And trying to overthrow the government, trying to murder your vice president, trying to kill Nancy Pelosi, those cannot be official acts if we live under rule of law. Now, if we're going to live in a Stalinistic dictatorship, and we're going to see the Republican Party, who my whole life they've spent, the Kremlin, bad, can't trust the Kremlin. There's Kremlin agents crawling around Washington. They're hidden in the mattresses. And now they embrace the Kremlin. This is just the most astonishing development. I debated on Middle Eastern TV a couple of days ago, one of Trump's surrogates. And he's just perfectly comfortable with, well, yeah, the guys in the Kremlin, we support them. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a massive pivot in policy. And, we have this conversation, you and I think it's at the 75th anniversary of NATO or so these celebrations are going on and conversations about NATO and about a robust alliance and the expansion of NATO, et cetera. And the reality is that Donald Trump has very much expressed reservations about NATO continuing. Now, the president, I don't think, can actually just pivot us out of NATO the way he did out of the Paris Climate Accord. He'd need Congress, I think, involved in that. But nonetheless, it reflects where what he's thinking and, where he's looking.
Well, in line with that, Mark, let me point out the Lincoln Project. That's the effort by Republican consultants to stop Trump. These are political consultants who worked on the Romney campaign, Bush, et cetera. They have a new ad out. Imagine what will happen if Donald Trump gets back in the White House. And one of the things they point out is that he'll just issue executive orders doing things. And who's going to stop him from doing these things when the Supreme Court's made it clear that if it's an official act, he can do anything he wants? Well, as commander-in-chief, he can say, we're withdrawing from NATO. He could order the return of most of our troops over there. And I don't know what would stop him from doing these things. I really don't. And I think we should all be concerned. He will definitely start rounding up massive numbers of people. And if you think American-born American citizens won't be deported in those cases, you haven't looked at the history of previous efforts to do things like that.
This you make an interesting point that I hadn't considered, honestly, about the NATO thing. You don't have to pull out of the alliance completely. You hobble the alliance. Right. By pulling your troops out. That's really clever. And to be honest, it's such an obvious thing, I didn't even think of it. It's a little like what they're doing at the Justice Department. When they get back in, they plan to dismantle the Justice Department and reshape it with loyalists. But what they're trying to do in the interim, even the House GOP is trying to sap money from the support of the Justice Department and other government agencies with which they have issues. I wanted to quickly ask you about something that was on your website that you helped found, you co-founded, DC Report. I thought it was a really good piece, and it relates to the Heritage Foundation, and we have some video I'll play for you in a moment from there. But the idea somehow that we may have to reckon with this Project 2025 because Trump seems to be, in this bizarre Alice in Wonderland way, the odds-on favorite to win. And Trump himself is trying to take baby steps away from Project 2025 because he knows that it's not super palatable. I mean, it's a right-wing handbook that he's obviously using. It does reflect his actual tendencies, but he wants to water it down so the public doesn't get shocked.
Right. Well, Donald, who is mentioned more than 300 times in the Project 2025 document, which was written by people he's endorsed, supported, thoroughly in bed with politically, is doing what he always does. Well, you know, I don't disagree. I have no idea what's in it. I don't know anything about the project. And I agree with big parts of it, but not other parts. Well, I'm sorry. If you don't know what's in it and don't have anything there, you know. And here's the principle about Donald that I've written about since almost when I first met him in 1988. If there are crystal clear waters, Donald will muddy them. And then say, well, we can't tell. It's all cloudy in there. You can't see what's in the bottom. And that's just a fundamental principle. I think the Democrats are mishandling Trump about all of these things in a very bad way. Don't come back at Donald Trump with my budget deficit's smaller than your budget deficit, even though that's true. First of all, most people don't know what the budget deficit is or the federal debt and how they're not the same thing. You come back at Trump and you either mock him and make fun of him because he has no capacity whatsoever to laugh at himself, or you hit him hard with visceral things. You know, you're a convicted felon. In Florida, you may not even be able to vote, and you want to be president of the United States. You know, why did you sit there for 3 hours and do nothing as people were calling for the murder of your vice president? Why didn't you immediately? And don't tell me it was the duty of Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't control the military. You were the commander in chief. And what about Dobbs? You know, the Democrats should be saying as a mantra constantly, Dobbs, 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 Dobbs.
It's because by extension, that's Supreme Court, Supreme Court, Supreme Court, which I think is now everybody's got that memo.
And by the way, Trump has now called for increasing the Supreme Court to 12 members. Now, that's kind of bizarre, 12, because you'll end up with split decisions, 6-6 maybe. But I've, for many years, long before Donald announced in 2015, have said the Supreme Court should be increased in size. Congress can set whatever size it's, can make it 3 people, can make it 300. That we should increase the court to 15 members because that's the number of justices needed to supervise the various different lower courts. Some of the justices are doubled up. And Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, in his annual reports keeps saying the workload's too heavy. And I've written about cases that district court judges and appeals court judges have basically thrown in the trash that are very important because they're really complicated and difficult cases on things like regulating fossil fuel companies and electricity pricing, cheating, and things like that. I mean, those are difficult, complex issues. We need to have several hundred more federal district court, that is trial court judges. We need to have probably 100 more appellate judges. And we need to have a larger Supreme Court. And by the way, I had a conservative I was on a radio show with once who said, well, we can't have 15 justices. The Supreme Court building isn't large enough for that. Yeah, that's a real problem. We couldn't build another Supreme Court building and then put some other court in the existing building. I mean, you haven't thought that through for a moment, have you, pal?
Listen, if Ben Carson can put $1 million into remodeling his office there at Housing and Urban Development when he was a Trump cabinet member, you can put $1 million into, you know, building out a little more space for the new justices. That's scary, though, because, you know, they always talk about, I'm talking about the expansionist tendencies on the court from Trump, because they always talk, the GOP did, about how the Democrats are going to expand the court. The Democrats are going to load the court. And now it's something that Trump does unapologetically. Very interesting. And now a word about this Kevin Roberts and the, you know, the Heritage Foundation, which is underscoring so much of what MAGA is about. Tony, can you play for David just a little bit of this guy and just your comments after this?
Oh, and Kevin, if you just want to freewheel it and respond to those clips and tell folks what the Heritage Foundation is doing to protect the rule of law and to protect individuals in this great country, pleasure to have you on.
Well, Professor, my great friend, thanks for filling in and doing a great job. Three things. Number one, in spite of all this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. No one in the audience should be despairing. No one should be discouraged. We ought to be really encouraged by what happened yesterday. And in spite of all of the injustice, which of course friends and audience of this show, of our friend Steve know, we are going to prevail. Number two, to the point of the clips and of course your preview of the fact that I am an early American historian and love the Constitution, that Supreme Court ruling yesterday on immunity is vital. And it's vital for a lot of reasons, but I would go to Federalist number 70 if people in the audience are looking for something to read over Independence Day weekend, in addition to rereading the Declaration of Independence. Read Hamilton's number 70, because there, along with some other essays, he talks about the importance of a vigorous executive. You know, former congressman, the importance of Congress doing its job, but we also know the importance of the executive being able to do his job. And can you imagine, Dave Bratt, any president, put politics off to the side, any president having to second guess, triple guess every decision they're making in their official capacity? You couldn't have the republic that you just described. But number three, let me speak about the radical left. You and I have both been parts of faculties and faculty senates and understand that the left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily, is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's just offensive. It'll remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. Your thoughts, David? That's the guy who runs the Heritage Foundation.
Well, first of all, he's giving you a terrible false impression of the area he claims to be an expert on. When our Constitution was written, Congress was seen to be the dominant of the three co-equal branches. The president's job was simply to do whatever the Congress told them to do. And that was largely true until the nature of world economies with industrialization and whatnot changed. And we've been giving more and more power to presidents and diminishing the authority of Congress. And the Supreme Court has just taken onto itself a great deal of the executive's authority with what's called the Chevron decision. Basically, instead of giving deference to the experts at various places, the biologists, the geologists, the mathematicians, et cetera, at federal agencies in implementing the laws Congress passes, the courts now will decide these matters of, well, what exactly did Congress mean by this or that language in the statute, which is a prescription for a full employment act for lawyers, a massive increase in the employment of lawyers. But this idea that we have a second American Revolution and it will be bloodless as long as the left allows it, that is so un-American. And let's remember who the Heritage Foundation is. The Heritage Foundation was founded by super wealthy people like the Anschutz family, Coors Beer and Southern Pacific Railroad, the Walton family after Sam Walton died, the Koch brothers, and their like, because they don't want to have an America where you and I and the janitor at your kid's school have any influence or power. They don't believe in democracy. They believe in, hey, we're rich guys. That shows we know what we're doing, and you should just let us do what we want. The Heritage Foundation has long stood for denying health care to people, even though it would save our economy a great deal of money if we had universal health care. I've shown, by the way, that if we had universal health care, it's the equivalent of starting income taxes at $600,000 a year for a married couple. Everybody below that, which is more than 99% of the public, wouldn't have to pay income taxes. Now, that's, by the way, a statistical measure. In the real world, it'd be more like $100,000 or $200,000, which would still be a big improvement.
You're saying the benefits that would accrue because you had public health care system would be the equivalent of what you just described.
And in addition, many people who are taxpayers who something happens to them, like the case of a man in Idaho whose hand was mangled and he was told, well, workers' comp isn't going to cover your hand. It would cost you $15,000. We could make it all fine. The guy didn't have it. So this taxpayer was converted into a disabled tax eater. And you and I, for the rest of his life, have to support him because he can't work anymore because of this hand injury, not in any job he's fit to do. And this is just dumb policy. The people who are backing Trump at the Heritage Foundation are not conservatives. Conservative means to maintain the things that we know work. The oldest surviving principle in Western civilization is progressive taxation. It's in the Old Testament. It was crucial to the founding of democracy in Greece 2,500 years ago. It is an ancient principle, the oldest surviving principle in Western civilization. That means progressive taxation is the most conservative idea of all in our Western civilization. And yet it's attacked by people like the Heritage Foundation, the Tax Foundation, and others. And that's because they're not conservatives. They're reactionary, authoritarian, even in some cases totalitarian in their views. And this implication of there will be violence unless the left bends over and does what we tell it to do is so deeply offensive. Unfortunately, that was on an obscure broadcast outlet.
That was on the Steve Bannon broadcast. That guy was filling in for him.
Actually, like this show on the internet, so it's not broadcast.
Right.
But you haven't seen this on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell, David Muir at ABC, or Lester Holt, the nightly NBC News. It hasn't been on the PBS report. It isn't on NPR. And that's a real serious problem because all of these institutions go, well, that's sort of like way out there, and maybe we'll do a little feature about it. This should be major top-line news that there is a group of rich, powerful people who want to overthrow the American order. They want a revolution, as the professor just said.
Exactly. It's one of the things I was sort of hinting at when we first started, because I feel like the media oxygen is all about, Joe Biden meeting with a Parkinson's expert, Joe Biden, struggling with his gait, whatever it might be. But this is certainly deserving. It falls into that email thing. What about her emails? What about her emails? Like, guys, you're losing your way here. And I've lost all my time with you, but I did want to just mention again, this piece of DC Report does a nice job of reducing Project 2025 to some key elements, and how moving forward, Trump really is singing from that hymnal, and he's trying to water it down. But the actual plans are very much included in 2025.
And the reason we should be so worried about this is that when Donald came in office in 2017, he had not expected to win. He wasn't prepared, unlike candidates usually are, where they've got a lot of people picked out. This time around, he has a huge team, a very well-funded huge team. They've picked out people for various positions. Trump will decide who he wants to put in which of these, but there are 4,000 political positions. Trump will fire civil servants left and right, people who are dedicated, serious people. And, like all promoters of authoritarianism, particularly fascism, although Donald doesn't even know what fascism is, one of the things you have to do is you have to discredit the news media. We're the enemy of the people. I've spent my whole life just lying to people. I mean, after all, what fun would there be in trying to dig out hidden truths and tell that when it's so easy to lie? And here's the thing that should really scare people. Donald has said he plans to fire the top generals and admirals. Well, history is replete with examples of what happens when someone comes in and wants to be a dictator. There are always captains, majors, lieutenant colonels who will sell out their country for power and glory. And if Donald, and I warned about this, by the way back in 2015 or 2016, if Donald starts firing generals and admirals, that's when you know that this is a dictatorship that he's making. He's declared he will be our dictator. Oh, just for one day. And if you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you.
David Cay Johnston, congratulations again on your professorship.
Thank you.
Really, yeah. And we have our cup runneth over with questions for you, et cetera. We'll table them. Yeah. But we'll jump on them with 2 feet next week. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Again, I encourage you to check out dcreport.org, which is the website that David helped start. He's the co-founder, and there's a great piece, as I say, my Terry Schwadron right now up there about just this stuff we're talking about. We'll talk next week. Thanks, David.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you. Yeah, good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, boy, we got to everything. I mean, I'm glad we got to that Project 2025 stuff because I just think it's scary, and it's all laid out there, you know.
When you hear David Cay Johnston talk about the possibility of even the mention of a bloodless civil war, just that it's very frightening, and that no one really is paying enough attention to what they're saying.
Yeah, it's a troubling look ahead at what has been an articulated position on the part of the right, but it also exists in an environment of total capture by the right of the Supreme Court. And you've already begun to see how the future is going to be laid out and realized. They've taken away a woman's reproductive rights. They've taken away the power of government to regulate toxins in the air, in your water, in the soil. That is to say, corporate polluters can do what they want. They are, in essence, turning America over to the courts. And since the fix is in the courts, it looks as though you're going to be living in a right-wing dictatorship under law, if you will, in the short term. And then, as David says, if Trump, and he's made every intention known of getting rid of military people, et cetera, and coring out the government, and he'll replace everybody with loyalists everybody who needs to be replaced, you really have a completely different country, and it's not underpinned by anything that we always associate with America.
Here's a question for you. Why aren't we talking about it more? I mean, we do, but probably not enough. Are we just, is it like, oh, that's not really going to happen? Are we just not believing them? Is it hysterical to look at what they're actually saying and talk about the realities of what they're trying to do? Why aren't we talking about this more?
I think that the clickbaity nature of a gaffe and questions about somebody's mental acuity, I think that's clickbaity. It's easy, you know. It's just easier to understand. We always go toward easy, you know. Why does a factory fire in Oakland lead the news on Channel 5?
Yeah.
Because it's visual, you know, it's totally contained, though. It's not like threatening, but it's visual. There are reasons that...
Good video,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah, it's good video.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a, if you will, commercial/show business aspect to the news. That's why they come in with music and they come in with these big video effects. These are all show business things, presentational, and they help communicate effectively. And I've talked to you before about how I feel as though media is critical. Media messaging is what it's all about. And that's why you're asking, how come we don't talk about this Project 2025 in the media? You're asking because you realize as well the power of the media. The media to determine the discourse, to determine messaging, in effect. This is a problem. This is a thing you should know about. You get that from the news. And so as the news is captured by families like Sinclair, they own all of these television stations, you'll never hear about anything that's in any way critical of the GOP or even makes you think about what might happen in the way of fascism and authoritarianism concerning the GOP. You'll never hear that on a Sinclair station. But and on some level, it may be true of the Nexstar stations too, you know? So that's that. And then you get, I think, the fact that it's a little harder to get your head around Project 2025, you know? It's easier to go, how many times did he meet with a Parkinson's expert? And I'm not saying that that's not important, but I don't think it's the only important thing going on. Trumpies are just saying the left is being alarmist. Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll always say something, Vladimir Putin said he wasn't invading Ukraine. He was just putting the troops there on the border for protection. And then you'll have to help me. I think he invaded Ukraine, didn't he? Yeah. The corporate media is profits over people. I agree with that, Underdog. Yes, good thought. There was a note I wanted to shout out to my Vicky. Vicky in Sausalito, my old home. Hi, Mark. Thanks for another great show. Gives us a $20 super sticker. Thank you, Vicky. Big shout out to you, and thank you for all the love and support on a regular basis. Same is true with Wes.
Yay.
Quit fighting, kids. Yeah, when Kim and I were going at it. Wes with a $5 super chat. It's tough with Kim. She likes to get into it.
I blame you.
Oh, there she goes again. All right. The Larry Henderson, Mark, your humility is so inspirational. I assume you're being facetious. And facetious is a ding word, and humility actually is a ding word. So well done. I don't know what you're talking about, but you're right. Believe me, when I need to have humility, Larry, I will. And I certainly don't need to in any exchange with Kim. I trust.
Why are you yelling?
I trust you're aware of that. And then there is this. Trevor Starr in Hollywood says, Kim, you were too enthusiastic. You should have just read it like it was a news story. Oh, the contribution by Vicky in Sausalito. You stopped down your newscast to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Mark wouldn't have even noticed. He says, well, how dare you? Of course I would notice.
It is true. No, you're turning around and sipping your Coachella Valley coffee.
Yeah, but I'm listening.
You're doing other things,
Oh, Mark, give Kim a break, LOL, says Jamila. Yeah. Brian, get back to politics. He says,
I blame
Mark, says Alan.
Exactly, Alan.
This is Brian's comment. Mark, I'll be voting for Biden or whoever the Dem candidate winds up being. But let's not act like it's okay that Biden is our supposed best choice at this point. I agree with every cell of that statement. I think that's exactly right. I'm voting for whoever the Democrats, drag onto the ticket. If it's Broadway Joe, I'm good with that. I've said it before. I'll vote for Joe Biden on a hospital gurney before I vote for anyone from the GOP. But you're also right. It's not okay that he's our supposed best choice. And I don't feel as though there was a primary process that really led to him. But let me say something in defense of what happened. Typically, there isn't a primary process for an incumbent. It just doesn't work that way. Look at it through time. You don't have, from the party, you don't have a bunch of candidates that are primarying the incumbent. You just don't have it because you have solidarity usually within the party. So what happened with this sort of announcement that Biden was going to go with a second term? What happened there was essentially something that is traditional politics. The incumbent is going to seek another 4 years. The reason that it was a little stickier this time, he said he was only going to be a one-term president. Mm-hmm. Now he's seeking a second term. And he seems to be struggling cognitively and maybe in other ways. So these things complicated it. But the actual process, even as I say, I wish there had been a primary process to actually establish who is viable with candidacy. In a way, our system doesn't allow for that. It allows for solidarity behind an incumbent president who's now going to run for re-election. And that's sort of what happened. So, somebody about Coachella Valley coffee. Vicky, I'll take Coachella Valley coffee at any temperature. Me too. Love it. Love my Coachella Valley coffee. And if you order it, make sure you get that discount. Mark T at checkout. Hot Italian espresso in the morning, cold brew rest of the day. One hot cup at night. Grady Kincaid.
Yeah.
Loving that.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
I guess. Wow. They have that cold brew, too. And Janet says, what? Runs to Coachella site to buy the cold brew, says Janet R. Yeah. Make sure you use that Mark T. Give me some feedback on the on the cold brew. We really like it. See what you think
I was
too.
reading the notes of the flavors on that cold brew. It said crisp pear, chocolate, and caramel are the taste. Yeah.
Ooh. Very cool. Well, help me with the time. Let's see.
It's 12:45.
We do a 2-hour show, so that's for those of you listening, when she says 12:45, that's in California. We do a 2-hour show. So this is the last 15 minutes of the show. And you can imagine there's a certain sadness. I'm downcast about the fact that I only have 15 more minutes. But I intend to make that the best 15 minutes of the whole show. That's right. That's exactly right. I'm leaning in. Let's lean in.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There are stories that are important that have not been spoken of, and the reason is because a lot of the, again, media oxygen has been taken up with stuff that's happening top of ticket on the Democratic side. But I wanted to mention, and we did get to the COVID stuff. I'm glad we got to that. I've got illness, not COVID, but illness. I have I have an environmental story that I have to do, but I'm making an executive decision. Let me just ask Mr. Predicto if my executive decision is right. I want to do the Italian vacation spot story that Mr. Predicto. Yes, okay, Mr. Predicto. Mr. Predicto, should I start with the Italian vacation spot story? We've done a lot of politics already today.
Everything points to no.
Oh. Wow. I'm sorry, guys. I can't start. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Predicto is still speaking. Hold on.
Everything points to yes.
Oh, my God. Mr. Predicto is already, you can't count on it. All right, this is it, Mr. Predicto. Should I do it or not?
The answer is no.
Okay, so I'm not going to do it.
I think he's being obstinate.
Wait, he's...
There is no doubt.
Oh, okay. There's no doubt. And, all right. Mr. Predicto is pretty much been set against that story. So I'm not going to do it.
I think he's acting up because he really enjoyed being called doctor, and you took it away from him.
He was never a doctor, and you gave him the title, and instead of apologizing, which you should have done, it was a simple, this is what you don't do, Kim, and I hope your parenting style is better than this.
Oh, goodness.
But you just simply say, I misspoke. We give you so many chances that there's so many off-ramps.
I misspoke.
Exactly. Just say, I misspoke. He's not a doctor. He's Mr. Boom, but you don't do that. You lean in, let me tell you.
Yeah. I blame you.
Yeah. Just I stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
That's all you got to do. So I am going to get to the Italian vacation hotspot in a moment. Don't worry, I will. But I wanted to mention something which is not mentioned much. And that is in the exuberance over our Mr. Predict guy is a negative Nancy. All right, can I call this to order and get into my last few minutes here?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Something that is seldom spoken of. Everybody gets so, I think, exuberant and enthusiastic about the Starship, as it's called. Elon Musk's Starship, the largest rocket ever manufactured. They successfully launched it last month. They talk about it being a giant leap for SpaceX and the civilian space program that is the America's space program. So 2 hours after that, once conditions were safe, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and a conservation group began canvassing the migratory bird habitat that surrounds the launch site. Oh, that's right. You have to launch somewhere, so they launch there, and they launch in an area which is a migratory bird habitat, and it's very fragile. The launch had unleashed an enormous burst of mud, stones, and fiery debris across all of these public lands that surround Mr. Musk's $3 billion space compound. Chunks of sheet metal and insulation strewn across the sand flats. A small fire had ignited, leaving a charred patch of park grasslands, remnants from the blast-off that burned 7.5 million pounds of fuel.
Wow.
But one thing that was quite disturbing was the yellow smear on the soil in the same spot that a bird's nest lay the day before. None of the 9 nests recorded by the nonprofit Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries program, none recorded before the launch had survived intact. Egg yolk now stains the ground. The nests have all been messed up or have eggs missing. This is a well-documented pattern. On at least 19 occasions since 2019, SpaceX operations have caused fires, leaks, explosions, or other problems associated with the rapid growth of this area in Boca Chica. These incidents have caused environmental damage and really point to a debate that we're not really having, which is what can be done to protect these delicate ecosystems and these local communities from these immensely destructive, powerful launches. You can imagine that Elon Musk, I've made this point before, he's a very powerful man. I mean, powerful over America, because you need his technology to launch into space. I've made this point several times. There's a short that I did a couple of years ago, I think, on this, which speaks to the fact that you've got the tail wagging the dog. There is no regulatory agency. There's no, even if you could get Congress to agree, they just will not bring Elon Musk into any kind of conformity when it comes to environmental policy, because Musk has a goal in mind, and it's related to space exploration and technology, and it's not related to conservation and protecting these habitats. So you need him for commercial space operations, for launching satellites. So you, the American government, cannot control Elon Musk. If you look at his tactics in South Texas, he's exploited the limitations and the different missions of various agencies. So the ones that would take issue with a lot of what he's done, he's really done everything in such a way so as to frustrate those agencies, particularly officials with the Interior Department's Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service. The FAA Bigfooted them because Musk asked the FAA to Bigfoot the Interior Department and the National Park Service. So in the end, South Texas's ecology took a backseat to SpaceX and the country's ambitions. Blowing debris into state parks or national land is not what we prescribed, but the bottom line is no one got hurt and no one got injured, said Kevin B. Coleman, the top FAA official overseeing the space launch licenses. We certainly don't want people to feel like they're being bulldozed, but it's a really important operation that SpaceX is conducting down there. It is really important to our civilian space program. So you see, he really kind of said the quiet part out loud. We need it. And so sorry about your birds and about fragile habitats.
Okay.
But that's the way Musk and tech control agencies that would otherwise modify their plans.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is a vacation hotspot that is turning tourists away. This gorgeous place, set atop a hill on the Italian island of Sicily.
Ooh, it's beautiful. Look at that.
Agrigento is a heritage tourist paradise. Beneath these archaeological structures, relics of its Valley of the Temples. Beneath it all lies an ancient maze-like aqueduct system that still captures water today. But the aqueduct and others built in modern times are running so dry that small hotels and guest houses in the city and nearby coast are being forced to turn tourists away.
No.
What?
They don't have enough water to guarantee their guests a toilet that flushes or even a shower after a day out in the summer heat.
Oh, no.
Sicily began enforcing water restrictions in February when the region declared a state of emergency amid a relentless drought there. And leaking, aging infrastructure has worsened the shortages. And now they've hit tourism and agriculture also. Those are two sectors that are crucial to Sicily's economy.
It looks like it was supposed to be a lake at one point. Wow.
Yeah. Well, what you're seeing is Lake Pergusa. It's in central Sicily, and it's fed by rain and groundwater and has no inlets or tributaries. And so you can see that it's in trouble. So less than a quarter of the usual rain fell during the winter across the island. That has left around 20% of underground aquifers in a state of water scarcity. The regional government declared a state of crisis and water emergency for irrigation and drinking in Agrigento and 4 other provinces. They've declared that that's going to last through the end of the year.
Yikes.
It's a brutal, brutal manifestation of the loss of water. Hotels, restaurants are going out of business. The Sicilian Regional Government Office points to a study that suggests drilling new wells and building more pipelines and bringing aging desalination plants back online might help. But they say Sicily's not received enough funds from Rome to carry out those plans. So they are running out of time and they are foundering. They are really in the last gasps. Citrus farmers, oranges are shriveling on the trees from lack of water.
Oh, well, look at that. Wow.
It is wildly disturbing. And many of the crops are dying. They also feel as though overdevelopment of urban centers and certain farms, citrus and wheat farms, this is where you get to managing agriculture, it has to be done quite carefully, have reduced natural wetlands by 20%, which worsens the problem. In any case, there's trouble in Italy, and it's a kind of trouble that is going to look all too familiar elsewhere. And a magnificent tourist spot, tourists are being told, don't come. We don't have water for you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is a high-profile passing, everyone. You don't know his name, but you'll know what he did. It's kind of a law and disorder thing, come to think of it. I hadn't thought of it until just now, Tony. Haven't done any franchises today, storied franchises that the kids love so much. Voting with Biden and the chunk of Trump. That's rich. We haven't done any of those. But we do have one waiting. I think we should do it now. Here is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people...
Pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care...
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
This guy pulled off a daring heist of one of the highest profile paintings in modern history. I'm talking about the Edvard Munch masterpiece called The Scream. There he is, Paul Enger. P-A-A-L-E-N-G-E-R. He's a Norwegian guy. He's just passed away, but boy, he really knocked down some lawlessness before he took the big trip. He was someone who grew up kind of working the streets, and let's just say he worked outside the law a lot. He played soccer and was into a lot of the flashy stuff, cars, boats, etc. as a young man. When, he says, I had the most beautiful women in the world in Oslo, but I wanted more. Specifically, he wanted the Edvard Munch painting, The Scream. Edvard Munch, very famous painter, and The Scream is sort of viewed as Norway's Mona Lisa. Okay, think of it that way. It's one of the most recognizable and reproduced paintings in the world. So the Scream sits in a gallery, and it's really well guarded. So it's kind of crazy that this guy put together a caper. Can you show them the Scream? You can see it. They're actually on the easel. Sorry about that, Tony. Yeah, that's great. So the museum in Oslo, they became vulnerable to Mr. Enger, as he's referred to, because he and his friend and longtime partner in crime, a guy named Bjorn Greidal, slipped through a window at the Munch Museum in Oslo, and they stole the Scream. Now, there are several versions of the Scream, I think. So they got a version of the Scream. They got it at this gallery. That's you'd think the one thing, it really is like the Mona Lisa.
I thought you said it was well guarded.
Right.
What do you mean slip through a window and grab it? That's not well guarded.
I mean, what is that staff meeting like afterward? Guys, I need everybody in. It's my fault. I should have probably made a bigger deal out of the Scream. It's the big thing that the tourists come here to see.
It's crazy.
So what happened is, to make a long story longer, they broke in, they got another Munch painting, but they didn't get the Scream, and he was so bummed about that he went back in and he got the Scream, and he essentially hung on to the Scream until he was found out as the guy who stole the Scream. And as it turns out, he had put the Scream right above like the ceiling board. So when the cops were there, he said, I really delighted in the fact that while they were questioning me about the Scream and do I know the whereabouts, that it was right above them, like 3 feet above them. So
he's evil.
He really is. But he got into the gallery to get the Scream the old-fashioned way. He clambered up a ladder outside of the National Gallery in Oslo. He smashed a window, slipped in, and within 50 seconds, slipped out with the museum's version of the Scream. It was valued at about $55 million at the time.
Oh, man.
They left behind their ladder, their wire cutters, and a note. The note said, 1,000 thanks for your poor security.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, that's a...
Good day, sir!
That's
that
right.
takes some cojones to leave a nasty note? Is it enough to just steal the painting? You've got to, add insult to injury?
So it's funny you say that because he said later, I don't think I really understood completely how much it meant for the National Gallery, the police, and everyone. I made a fool of them on national TV. And meantime, though, they couldn't find him. They never really did sleuth exactly where it had ended up. But the thing that did him in is a gallery, I believe it was the Getty Gallery in California, expressed interest in buying the Scream from an art dealer who was connected to him. And that was the beginning of the undoing and the revealing of who actually had it.
See, that's dumb criminal behavior because the art world is looking for it. You can't sell that thing. So if you steal it, it has to be just for your own personal enjoyment because it's not going anywhere. It's like a lead balloon. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah, Kim's right. You should think part of the caper is thinking about unloading the hot stuff. Right. The sentencing for him, I thought you might be curious. How much do you think he was sentenced to after all of that? He's stolen, as I say, the Norwegian Mona Lisa. Anybody want to take a guess at what? That's right. How much time did he get? In 1996, he was sentenced.
Is it 25 years?
I think 25 years would have been 5 years, says Grant Johnston, and 5 years, I'm going to give it to you, Grant. It is 6 years and 3 months.
That's it?
And while he was in prison, during the 3 months and 6 years he took up what? If you guessed painting. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hate to leave. Don't want to leave. Have to leave. Don't want to. I know what you're saying. I can hear it. I can hear it through YouTube, which is our parent platform, as we're live every day there, and I feel it. I feel this strong, it's a pull toward doing one more quick story. And yet, I want to ask Mr. Predicto whether that would be wise, because I don't know. I think Mr. Predicto actually has been pretty good to this point. So I'm going to ask you now, Mr. Predicto, should I do, again, for the audience that is still here, should I do one more story, Mr. Predicto? I ask you now.
The answer is unclear. Try again.
All right. Mr. Predicto, we're actually over time, but just by a few minutes. Should I do one more story quickly before we sign off? Mr. Predicto.
Everything points to no.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to do it then.
Party over.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I got to.
Good day, sir.
All right. Very good. Look, you got to ride with Mr. Predicto. Oh, my God.
Wow, what was that?
Tony, do I have anything else to do, or what's going on here?
We're good.
Don't ask a toy. Don't ask a... William Geip, how about a $3 super sticker and a big shout out to William? Thank you very much. Even Predicto is a time waster, says SF Tesla. How dare you? Mr. Predicto is a classic Mark Thompson time waster. This is the contagion.
This is a classic Mark Thompson time waster.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I'm in love with Mr. Predicto, of course. And, some call him Dr. Predicto. I call him Mr. Predicto because that's his name, Mr. Predicto. Thank you all. The After Party Live is going down over on the After Party Live channel, so check that out. And then tomorrow, we've got quite the show.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We've got John Rothman, who made a bold prediction last week.
Bye-bye.
And Belinda Weymouth with It's the Planet Stupid. That's just for starters. See you tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.